This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So awesome. So last time we were together, we spent quite a bit of time going through all the resident rights as they're written in the Ohio Revised Code, and sort of summarize those rights into some bigger buckets of communication and choice and some things like that. And so we're going to continue on and pick up with the topic of restraints. So you may recall, I think Margaret had the pleasure of reading this one. It was right number 13 about the use of restraints, and it's a very long one. But the sum of that right is on this slide here. So restraints, there's particular times that they can and cannot be used, and the person has to be seen by a doctor within 12 hours. The continued use of a restraint must be ordered by a doctor. It has to be reevaluated every 30 days, and never can it be used as convenience, incentive, or punishment. Okay. So,
Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't see the slides.
no? Am I not sharing?
I see the go to meeting page.
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. I'm sorry. Let me change that. Thanks for calling that out. Yeah. How about if I share this one? Better? Okay. All right. So as you see on the slide, okay. So as an ombudsman, well, first of all, my suggestion here is that if you're not sure what some of these things are, it's easiest just to Google the term and look for an image. You know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and probably does a better job at it than me trying to explain all these. But all these are considered restraints, physical restraints. So if they put mitts on somebody, then how are they going to ring their call bell? You know? Interestingly enough, side rails on a bed. So a lot of places have the hospital beds, and they do have side rails, but those actually can be restraints. Now, I have talked to residents who have those side rails up, and in one woman's case, she wanted the side rails up because she had a difficult time sitting up, and she would use the side rail to pull herself up. So in that case, she wanted them, therefore her preference, her choice. But in general, side rails, you know, if they're restricting someone from getting out of bed, then it can be considered a restraint. Tucking the sheets too tight, that can be a restraint. Now, on all of these, I don't mean all of these. Yeah. Okay, alarms is what I want to talk about. Alarms, you'll see these on wheelchairs. So it's a pad that the person is sitting on, and on the back of their wheelchair is a white box, which is a squawk box. It's an alarm that goes off if somebody tries to stand up. Likewise, these are used on beds. The alarm goes off if someone gets out of bed. And what people will say, people being, you know, the director of nursing, or sometimes it's the family, who will say, well, you know, we don't want dad to fall, So we want the alarm on there so that he can't get up by himself. He has to ask for help, or somebody has to turn that alarm off first. So Dad then has to ring the call bell and wait till somebody comes. And so there may be situations where that's appropriate, but I always ask residents, do you want, I see you have an alarm on your wheelchair. Now, is that something you want? And I'm trying to see if they understand that they have one and what it does and why they have it. And they may say, yeah, my daughter says I have to have that because she doesn't want me to fall. Well, again, the resident has a right to make that choice. So they may be a fall risk, but we're going to see on the next couple slides, I think 1 or 2 slides from now, there's other things that can be done in lieu of a physical restraint like this. Has the facility tried, there's socks with the rubber lines on the bottom to help someone maybe stand up and get a little bit of a grip. Beds can be lowered down, way down to like 18 inches off the ground. So, have they tried lowering the bed? And then there can be a mat alongside of the bed so that if someone rolls over, they roll onto the mat instead of onto the floor. So there's other things that can be tried before some of these alarms. Yet, depending on the facility, sometimes you walk in and you see a whole bunch of these white boxes on the back of the wheelchairs, which are alarms. So, yeah, we want to educate people on their right to choose, the right to be free from a physical restraint. And like any of these, all of these, including alarms. Okay. All right. Chemical restraints, I alluded to this in one of our earlier sessions. That is the use of some of these antipsychotics, tranquilizers, sedatives, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, even antihistamines. And we often don't know if someone's being chemically restrained. They may be acting lethargic, but maybe they're not feeling well that day. If you, as you're going around making your visits and you get to know someone and they're behaving differently, you could maybe inquire, how are you feeling, and are you taking it? Has there been any change to your medications? And if there has been, is there an understanding of what that is? And in the case of hospice, sometimes at the end of life, they do give residents Seroquel, and that is an antipsychotic, yet that might be appropriate for end of life. So, yeah. So, yeah, in Ohio, Ohio ranks 25th in the country for use of antipsychotics in nursing homes. Okay. You don't have to know that. You do need to know this, because I believe this is on your exam. So why do we advocate against restraints? We advocate in favor of eliminating restraints because these are some of the effects. People are restrained to their chairs. They cannot get up and go to the bathroom on their own. They might end up with a UTI. We talked about those. We talked about pressure sores. If you can't get up from your wheelchair, if you can't get up from your bed, you may develop pressure sores if you're not moved every 2 hours. We've talked about the importance of mobility and losing muscle mass, losing, bones can become brittle. The lack of mobility can lead to pneumonia. Depression. You've taken away someone's mobility, it could lead to depression. Ultimately, this type of restraint, it could lead to death even. So you want to be aware of these outcomes, not only for your exam, which you'll need to know, but you know, this is someone's quality of life that we're talking about. So you want to be aware of what restraints are, and as the next slide, I believe, says, yeah, some of the what can we offer up as ombudsman as alternatives? You know, we can ask someone, have they tried non-skid shoes and socks? Maybe someone wouldn't fall if they had a little more physical therapy to work on their balance, to work on, you know, how do I get myself up safely? Maybe instead of being restrained to the wheelchair, maybe if they just were holding a book in their lap, maybe that would prevent them from getting up without assistance, but yet still leave them with some, maybe a little mobility to twist or to move a little bit. And then I talked about beds being lowered to the floor and then mats that can be alongside. So I'm always going to ask the resident if maybe they've tried some of these things, or if they'd like to try some of these things. And then, of course, with consent, we can maybe go together and have a conversation with the director of nursing, or go together, or if we get consent, we can act on someone's behalf, have a conversation with physical therapy. Hey, is this resident, you know, a good candidate for some more physical therapy? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it'll be, well, this person tried physical therapy and, you know, they've reached their maximum abilities, and it's, you know, there's really nothing more physical therapy can do for the person. But, you know, we're always going to want to inquire about restraints and see if the resident is aware of their rights and aware of some alternatives. Okay, and the family, because oftentimes the family believes they're doing the right thing. The family believes this is what's best for mom or dad, to be restrained, because we don't want them to fall and we don't want them to break a hip, and there are bad things that can happen. But again, that goes back to, has the consequence been explained to the resident? Okay, Mary, you do not have to have this alarm on your chair. Now be aware that when you stand up, especially if you stand up too quickly, you may fall. And here, if you fall, you could break a bone. You could, you know, end up with a serious problem. So, but as ombudsman, we're always going to advocate for the resident's choice. If they have capacity and they understand this risk, it's their right to take that risk. Okay, we talked early on, residents have spent a lifetime making decisions and deciding their level of risk. Okay, so that's about choice. Okay, and preferences, right? We want the resident to feel confident about their rights and speaking up for what their preferences are. Okay. All right. As always, you know, if a resident speaks up, they should not fear retaliation. That's true of any of these slides we're going to come upon. Okay, maybe there's, you know, the resident may have thought about this. Maybe they have an idea, like, you know, in the mornings I do well. You know, I'd like to be able to get out of my bed by myself in the morning. But by afternoon I'm tired and maybe I do need help getting into bed. Or maybe in the evenings, maybe I should have the bed alarm, because if I try to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I'm, you know, a little disoriented, and So, you know, the residents should be participating in the solution, and they may have some great ideas. They maybe have already given this some thought. And then, of course, we can share best practices that we know about. And then here's that care plan again, that document. It can be written into the care plan that no alarm should be used on the resident from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That alarm may be activated after 8 p.m. until 8 a.m. or something. You know, the solution can be entered into the care plan and should be followed by the staff. Okay. So, yeah, and our job is to, you know, what does the resident want? We're always advocating on behalf of the resident, and things like we've always done it that way, or she gets up too much. I mean, those are not good. Those are not reasons that somebody should be restrained. So again, we're there to partner with the provider. So, you know, we can always pose the question, well, what can we do to give Johnny some more freedom, some more mobility? You know, we can put it back on the staff person we're talking to. How can we eliminate this restraint and still keep George safe? Like all these names I make. Okay. Residents, and this is real, so we want to be aware of this. A lot of residents, they don't want to criticize where they are, the people working there, the provider. And again, they have to be there 24/7, so they are hesitant to speak up, and it is their home. Sometimes they want to pick their battles. They're like, yeah, I know this isn't really right, but I don't want to say anything. Or I don't want to say anything right now. Again, as they get to know you over time, maybe they will accept your help to advocate on their behalf. But until we have consent, we will educate on their rights. Make sure they know that this is your right, and you have a right to speak up and not fear retaliation, etc. And so always tying it back to the rights. That's why knowing those 33 are so important. And again, you don't have to commit those to memory, but if I were you, I'd have those 33 rights in front of me when I take the exam. I'm just saying. Okay, so we put things back into the context of someone's rights. Okay, and yeah, again, honoring their right to choose and their right to make decisions, including honoring their right to not say anything. That is their control over their lives, as it says here, and that's their choice. So we're going to educate, we're going to empower, and only with consent will we advocate on their behalf. And empowering someone, I mean, you'd be surprised how many people, they just don't know they can go talk to the social worker or to the DON or to the activities director whenever they want. And just giving them that information a lot of times makes a big difference. Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh, I already mentioned this. Sometimes residents want to choose their battles, and this may not be it. You know. So this last bullet point, low expectations. That really is a problem in all nursing homes, I would say. We want residents to expect excellence in their care. And sometimes part of our encouragement, part of our empowerment is getting that message through that, you know, you should expect your call bells to be answered. You should expect to get showers on your shower days. You should expect to be treated with dignity and respect at all times. So sometimes our educating of rights helps raise those expectations, because too often the expectations are pretty low. Okay. This goes back tension between desire for independence and the need for assistance. That goes back to why people sometimes won't accept the help of an ombudsman. You know, they want to be independent. They don't want to ask for help by the staff or ask the ombudsman for help. And yet, there comes a point in time when everybody needs help. So, but that's, you know, we just need to recognize maybe that's what's going on. So another thing, another venue, if someone won't give us consent to help, you know, we can always encourage, and we want to encourage residents to go to the resident council meeting. So there are monthly resident council meetings. You know, maybe that's a good forum for you to talk about anything really. You know, the aide on third shift who treats everybody nasty, you know. So that's another avenue we have. If somebody's not ready to ask us to advocate on their behalf, we can encourage them to speak up at a resident council meeting. We can encourage them to file a written grievance. So this is part of our education. This is part of our empowerment. Okay. All right, let me see. Yeah, okay. So in this exercise, I guess I'll just do it this way. I will just pause. You know, we just went through 3 slides of obstacles. So does anybody have any, just throwing it out there, any concerns or any obstacles that maybe are running through your mind, like, I'm not sure what I would do, or how you might overcome some of the obstacles?
I can certainly see an obstacle that the residents are intimidated to address their concerns with the staff. Personally, I mean, I already feel intimidated by the sort of the battle of advocating, advocating for them if they're not, if the, if the facility is not already, you'd think these people they're specialists in this, so to speak. Why do you have to have an outsider come in and tell them how to, or make suggestions? I find it intimidating, so I can certainly see why a resident would find it intimidating.
Yeah.
Depending on everybody's personality. Are you a little more tough or a little more soft or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly understand those obstacles just to but yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying I can appreciate that.
I think in particular, I feel like my parents' generation really deferred to authority much more so than, some of the younger generations coming up. And so, if they say that's the way it's got to be, they just kind of take that and just roll with it instead of challenging it or pushing back.
Yep, that is absolutely true. Yes, a generation ahead of us would definitely, well, the doctor said that's what I should do, and I think the younger you are, you might question that, and an older person wouldn't think to question. So yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Linda, Susan's point makes me think, you've sort of alluded to this. I was just kind of wondering, do you find a lot of situations where there seems to be tension between the wishes of the family and for the resident themselves? And then does that become a challenge sometimes as an ombuds?
It definitely happens. Is it a lot? No, I don't know. I tell you what happens. Sometimes we will be, somebody wants us to get into the middle of a family struggle, right? The son wants one thing, the daughter wants something else. Maybe mom doesn't have much capacity left anymore, and so both siblings think they're doing the right thing. Unfortunately, mom's in the middle of it, and they want us to come in and referee. And I will say that that is not the role of the ombudsman. We're not there to try to solve family dilemmas. So we're always there to advocate on behalf of the resident, and to whatever degree the resident can express his or her wishes. You know, even somebody with dementia can still tell you things about their preferences. You know, when they're sleepy, when they're awake, when you know, maybe something about the food, or so even though maybe even the power of attorney is in effect, but we're trying to determine and decipher what does that resident want. And unless someone is incompetent, even if the power of attorney is in effect, we're going to try to advocate for what the resident is telling us. So does it happen a lot? It happens. I don't know how to quantify it. You know, maybe 20% of the time or something. But yeah, families, family business can get ugly. Someone called in and she's like, you know, with COVID, you know, early on, like the power of attorney had the right to say who could be on the visitors list. And the daughter is like, I want to see my mom, but my brother, who's the power of attorney, won't let me. And she's like, what can you do? I'm like, ultimately, she has to talk to her brother, who she hasn't spoken to in 20 years. I can't help that the dynamic between the brother and sister is that awful. But it's not something as an ombudsman I can solve. So yeah, so we do get family situations, and we're not always the person who can solve that. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Get over here. Okay. All right. We have introduced this term a little bit earlier on, person-centered care. I think we have. If not, we're introducing it now. So, person-centered care. This is best practice. Person-centered care, treating residents as individuals, as equal partners in their care. They should participate in their care decisions. Their care plan should be personalized. So the multidisciplinary, that means the social worker, the activities director, you know, the DON, maintenance, whoever, all those disciplines, therapy, they should be contributing to the person's care plan. And that care plan should be individualized, not rubber stamped, and it changes. So this care plan that I've talked about, you know, you enter the facility, the MDS sheets are filled out, the care plan is created. But it does need to be reviewed every quarter because people change and their needs change. And maybe there was no issue at all getting dressed by themselves when they first entered the facility. Time has passed, and now getting dressed in the morning, that needs to be put into the care plan. So the other thing I want to say about person-centered care is that this is the platinum rule. Okay, everybody knows the golden rule. You know, do unto others as you would have done unto you. But the platinum rule is to treat others as they wish to be treated. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. Treat others as they wish to be treated. That's what person-centered care means. So, honoring choice and self-determination. So every person has the ability to express some preference, and that resident is the primary authority on his or her life. Everybody should be treated with dignity and respect. And then a supportive environment, or a purposeful living environment. Every person, you know, we talked about there's a lifetime that this person comes into a provider with. And so every person has strengths, every person has gifts, every person has something they can contribute. And every person has hopes and dreams and desires. And wherever possible, that should be honored. So walking into a nursing home a few weeks back, you know, there was a woman out watering the hanging baskets. So I just said hello to her and started talking to her, and she is a resident. And she just likes gardening, and so her responsibility is to water those hanging baskets when they need it. So that's honoring, you know, someone's desire. Maybe it's you know, a hope or a dream, or you know, so the better staffs recognize people's abilities. You know, maybe there's a resident who wants to make sure the dining room, there's a napkin in every place setting, and maybe set the table, right? So in best practice, people's gifts and skills and strengths and desires are employed and utilized wherever possible. Right? And that goes back to that definition that we have. The purpose of the facility is to care and service to attain or maintain the highest practicable physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being of the residents that are there. Now, as ombudsman, not only should the staff of the home kind of check their language, as ombudsman, we want to check our language as well. So we want to model person-centered care. So on the right is person-centered care language. So I won't read all of these. It's not a diaper. It's an adult brief or a disposable brief, okay? We don't say the resident needs a diaper. Okay? That's not person-centered care. The resident's being discharged, okay? That is terminology used in the industry, but the language we want to use is move out. Does the resident desire to move out? Not is she being discharged. Okay. It's not a 100-bed facility. It's 100 people living in this home. This is a resident's home. A lot of times someone will say, well, you know, a director of nursing, an aide, someone will say, well, he's easily agitated. Well, maybe he's just an active or someone communicating distress. So a lot of these terms are sort of embedded in how aides and nurses talk about patients. See, okay, so it's not a patient, right? It's a resident. These are not, patients are in hospitals. We don't use the term patient. These are residents. Okay. Yeah, so you can read through those, but we do want to check ourselves in the language that we use. Okay. All right. So here's a scenario, and you guys get to rephrase this into person-centered language. Okay. So the scenario is you approach an aide and ask how many residents are living in the memory care unit. And she replies, we have 10 dementia patients right now. How would you rephrase that reply?
Well, instead of patients, I'd say residents. So 10 residents with, I guess a direct reference to the condition would probably be appropriate in some cases. So I'll say 10 residents with dementia.
Okay. Yes. So the distinction here, this is, you know, we're parsing words a little bit, yet we're not. So we have 10 people or residents, it'd be okay. We have 10 people living with dementia in the memory unit. Okay. So living with dementia as opposed to the label dementia. Maybe that's subtle, but maybe you can hear the difference. So okay. Yeah. All right. All right. Time check. I'm going to move on. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is about a 4-minute video, and hopefully I've got everything set up so that you'll hear it. Stop me if you don't. Hang on.
My name is Richard, and I have Alzheimer's disease. By the way, I am not the voice of Alzheimer's. I am just Richard Taylor, who happens to have that diagnosis. Because this is my new purpose in life. It's to say that people with dementia are whole people and should be treated as whole people. I am a whole person, damn it. I am not half empty. I am not half full. I am not declining. I am a person. Now, I may be a different person slightly than I was yesterday, but I am still a whole person. See, we need enablers, not disablers. And most organizational programs are focused, I believe, at disabling us. If you see us making a mistake or an error, you take it away from us. I watched a dad try to fill out a form, and his son was watching. Dad had Alzheimer's. And he put down the wrong phone number, and he couldn't remember his address. So the son walked up and gently took the form out of his dad's hand. He says, "Here, Dad, let me help you." And he erased the phone number right in front of his dad. put the right phone number in, filled out the rest of it, and gave it back to his dad and said, "Here, Dad, I love you." Now, that was a loving gesture from the son's perspective. But what did it tell the dad? You're not competent, didn't it? And by the way, Dad, you'll never have to fill out a form the rest of your life. We'll take care of all that for you. Well, there goes another piece of my life. I will end up half empty if people keep disabling me. But the core issue is we're still whole people. We still have a right to personal dignity. Now, you can enable us to hang on to that dignity. Alzheimer's is called the long goodbye. So when the gun goes off and they say you have dementia, probably of the Alzheimer's type, everybody starts to say goodbye to you. People stopped calling me, my friends, and I would call them and say, "Why aren't you coming over? Why aren't we talking anymore?" They'd say, "I didn't know what to say to you." And I would say, "Well, say hello."
The rest of that is music. So, all right. So that, yeah. What do you guys think about that?
I think it ties into the to the idea of ageism and the lack of awareness of the elderhood. You know, the conversation we had before. I like that he said he's still a whole person, even though he may be a different person. I mean, you can say that about children, right? They're whole people, even though they're not full adults yet. So, liked his perspective.
And you could hear the frustration in his voice, right? So all of us can only imagine the level of frustration when, you know, as bits of your life get taken away, whether it's by the disease or by the children or by the provider or, yeah. Okay. All right. So, person-centered care. Where would you prefer to sleep and why? The left or the right?
I would say the right. It looks a lot more homey. The one on the left looks more like a fixed up hospital room.
Yep. Yep. The better homes should look, they're, you know, we'll assume that blanket is, you know, a blanket the residents had for 20 years and pictures on the wall. And yeah, there should be personal effects. And the room on the left is institutional looking. Okay, same thing. Which bathroom, left or right?
I suppose the right, although neither of them look great. I see a medicine cabinet on the right, which and the round mirror. Those look a little more homey, although I'm not sure. The one on the left, you know, has got the stand around the toilet. You might need that. I'm not sure. They both look bleak.
Okay, so yeah. So the idea is the one on the right should look more homey. I mean, not too many of us have paper towel dispensers at home bolted to our walls, but still, the grab bars are often you know, attached to the wall. Yeah. So the correct answer is the one on the right, but it's, you know, it's not perfect, but it's more home-like, let's say. And then where would you prefer to dine?
I'd say definitely on the right. The linoleum floor on the left looks very institutional. The chandelier looks nice on the right, makes it feel warmer without those recessed lights on the left. It just looks homier. It looks more like you're in a restaurant or dining room as opposed to a facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's cloth napkins, carpet,
Tablecloth, yeah.
tablecloth. Yeah. But some facilities would say, well, you know, the left is easier to keep clean. You know, we can just mop up the floor. But person-centered care would say the environment is important and the environment should be like the one on the right. Okay. Some other best practices, person-centered care, consistently assigned staff. So there's a bunch of studies that prove this out, that when the same aides take care of you day in and day out, the quality of care is better. They get to know you. They get to know, oh, well, Mary doesn't like that shower water too hot. She likes it kind of lukewarm. You know, Frank, he wants to eat right at 4 o'clock, and that, you know, but his roommate Joe wants to eat more like at 6:30. So aides consistently assigned to the same people. They get to know the residents. They get to know them as people, and it just makes the quality of life that much better. When possible, consistently assigned staff is important. Families visiting and participating, and families being welcomed, that's a big deal. Again, plenty of studies show that those who have families and regular visitors, quality of life is better. I think I shared with you on the first day we met that up to 60% of residents do not receive regular visitors, you know, visitors on a regular basis. And so yeah, that's a problem, and not something that you can necessarily solve. On the other hand, some days you're the visitor that they don't get, so they're happy to talk to you. You're there, and they want to say hello, and they want to talk to you, and they want to get to know you. So while we're there for a purpose, we don't want to overlook the, you know, hello and how are you, and the genuine interest in the people living there. Okay. You know, sometimes families can bring in the dog, and you know, sometimes there's plants in the room, and so these are all, again, person-centered. The care plan, the document that we've mentioned a number of times now, should be written in the resident's voice. So how a care plan is written, I do have an example. I don't think I'll have time to bring it up today, but sometimes care plans look very institutional, but really care plans should be written in the consumer voice, the resident's voice. You know, yeah, I'll maybe bring up an example of that next time. Yeah, okay, I won't go off on a tangent. All right, good. So here we go. So this is the process we want to walk through. How are we going to get to a care plan? And I've talked about this, but let's talk about it in detail. I talked about when someone comes into a facility, they move in, that these things start happening. The MDS sheets get filled out. And I don't know how well you can see on your screen, but those are MDF sheets. You can see I think there's 24 sections, section A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There might be 26 actually. And if you can read that, you can see section J, health conditions, section C, cognitive patterns, section F, preferences for customary routine and activities. So it is very comprehensive. You can see the language there is kind of institutional, but this leads to, it's a base document that and leads to ultimately the care plan. There's also care area assessment, the RAI, resident assessment instrument. So an MDS is an instrument. So these instruments, and the MDS, by the way, all those multifunctional areas, they have a section to fill out. So the social worker has sections, I'm making this up, M, N, and O. The physical therapist fills out section S and T. So it is a multidisciplinary document in that everybody, the chaplain has a sheet to fill out. So all that input does get gathered into the one document, which is great. And it is the basis for creating the care plan, which, as it says here, is the roadmap to the resident's care. So that's a good way to think about it. The resident should be involved in that roadmap. And this is where their voice comes in, expressing their preferences, expressing what they want. So the residents have a right to be included in this planning process. They have a right to voice what their goals are. The resident has a right to request a care plan meeting anytime they want. And that meeting can include some or all of those interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary areas that we talked about. It should be revised at minimum quarterly, but it can be revised at any time. And any significant changes to the resident's situation should cause that care plan to be revised. Okay, so care plans should be individualized, they should be specific, should be written in common language that everyone understands. So that's why it's not the MDS sheet. The MDS, like I said, can be kind of institutional, it can have jargon. And you shouldn't see things in the care plan like exhibits behaviors. Okay, that's code for this is a problem resident. Behaviors. Okay. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good language. Okay. So it's an important document, and as ombudsman, we can utilize it. We can use this process, this care planning process, and the care plan as a tool. The solution to a problem may be to get something documented in the care plan. And the care plan is what should drive the behavior of the aides who are providing care, the nurses who are providing care. Anybody in direct contact with the resident should be aware of what the care plan of that resident is. Okay, so a lot of the education we do is, asking residents, do you participate in your care plan meetings? Do you know what your care plan is? A lot of residents don't know they have a care plan. They don't know they have the right to participate in that plan. They don't know they have the right to ask for a copy of that plan anytime they want to see it. And I had a resident ask for her care plan, and she became very upset, and rightly so, because the language in that care plan, she took it as derogatory. She was definitely obese, and so there were things written in the care plan that were like, indicating that, her problems are because she eats too much. Okay, it didn't say that, but those were the implications. And the things written in the care plan were, refuses proper diet, things like that. And so, but everyone should be aware that the resident has a right to read that at any time. So, yeah. Okay. Family can be a part of the care plan meeting if the resident requests the family to attend. Family can be excluded from care plan meetings if the resident requests the family not be a part of it. Okay. And it's always a good idea that these care plan meetings, the aides should be a part of that. A lot of times they're not, but those are the folks doing literally the heavy lifting. They have probably the most interaction with the resident, so they should be a part of that resident's quarterly care plan. Moving on to transfer versus a discharge. So definitions, a resident moves from a facility to another facility. That's known as a transfer. A transfer is also the resident goes to the hospital for a temporary stay, and then they return to the same facility. When that happens, the facility is required to hold their bed. It's called a bed hold. And there are so many bed hold days per year. I think it's 30. So in other words, somebody can't be sent out to the hospital and then not have a place to come back to. Okay, so bed hold days is a term. And then discharge is when the resident moves from a facility without the expectation of returning to that facility. They could be going back to live in the community, or they could be transferring to another long-term care facility. Maybe they've improved and they're going from a nursing home to an assisted living. There's several legitimate reasons for discharge. There's also reasons that residents can't be discharged. And this was also in the resident rights. We read through it, and there was a lot of legalese in there. But to be discharged, this is involuntary discharge, by the way. So sometimes discharges are voluntary, right? The resident wants to move to a different nursing home. Okay. A discharge notice is issued. The resident moves. The social worker has already confirmed that this other nursing home is available and will take the resident. The social worker helps with the transportation. And so there are discharges that happen voluntarily, and the resident wants it. The resident wants to be closer to their daughter, so they want to go to a different place, something like that. Then there are involuntary discharges, and this is a large complaint that we get. The resident wants to stay, but the facility, the provider, issues a 30-day notice. You're being discharged. Okay, so there are some requirements around that. There are some legitimate reasons a resident can be involuntary discharged. Failure to pay is one of them. But as we said, if there is Medicaid application in process. Okay, you can't discharge someone because their Medicaid application is in process. I also mentioned Medicaid has to be renewed once a year. All right, it is the resident's responsibility to get it renewed, but sometimes they need help with that. And they can get help with that. There's lots of services available for that help. So if the renewal is in process, they can't be discharged. But if it's simply a matter of not paying or the Medicaid application has been denied, the facility does have a right to be paid. So a resident can be discharged if they have improved and they no longer need a skilled level of care. A resident can be discharged if they are a danger to other residents. So I mentioned someone who kept smoking with the oxygen tank on. Okay, that is a danger to other residents. A reason that's often cited is the facility can no longer meet the needs of this resident. There may be legitimate things that have occurred. Someone needs vent care, and so they do have to go somewhere that specializes in vent care. They need bariatric care, and so there are some reasons someone may need to move. But a lot of times that box is checked, and it's because the facility finds the resident difficult and they may not want to deal with it. So I'm going to bring up an example of a discharge notice. This is a 30-day discharge notice, just so you understand what the components are. I did my best to redact a few things. So, hand delivered to the resident. And it says this discharge will take place 30 days from the date of this notice. The reason for discharge, this one's checked. The resident has failed after reasonable and appropriate notice to pay the patient liability as mandated by Medicaid. Okay. They have to indicate where the person is going to be discharged. This, I believe, was a relative. So they're saying, well, this person's going to be discharged from the nursing home and going to a relative. Okay, so that raises some questions. Is it a safe and orderly discharge? Because that is the responsibility of the provider. They have to provide a safe and orderly discharge. So I do not know the specifics of this discharge, but I mean, is this person in a wheelchair? Does this location have wheelchair ramps? Does it have grab bars? Is there going to be somebody there to take care of the resident? You know, is this a safe and appropriate discharge? I don't know. But here's what I want you to see, the next part. You see it says this address or, wait for it, shelter house drop-in center. Okay, at no time is it appropriate to discharge anyone to a homeless shelter. And yet here it is in black and white. Somebody put this on this discharge notice as an appropriate, safe and orderly discharge to the drop-in center. Okay, not good. All right, so we're going to get involved. All these discharge notices, they are copied to the ombudsman program here. And as soon as we see a hotel, sometimes people try to discharge to a hotel. We see the drop-in center, the homeless shelter. We're going to get involved because that is not a safe and orderly discharge. So,
Linda?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to ask real, why would a facility put this in there knowing they're copying pro seniors and that y'all will get involved? And are they ever allowed to do it? I mean, what's the outcome if they do this?
There's just an awful lot of perhaps uneducated social workers who are working off of some bad information that they think this is okay. So, okay, someone will say, well, when this person came to us, when they were admitted to our facility, they came from the hospital, they were homeless, so now I'm going to discharge them to the drop-in center. Okay, that might seem logical, but we're still going to fight against that because, okay, you made the decision to admit this person to your home. Okay, that's you don't have to admit someone. You can say, no, we're not equipped to take this homeless person. No, we're not. So you don't have to admit someone. But once you do, you have agreed that you can care for this person, and now you're trying to discharge them. So the discharge needs to be to another nursing home, not to a homeless shelter. So yeah, sometimes people can't find another bed for this person to go to. Maybe they do have a history and they're not fine. Sometimes the social worker needs to make a bunch of calls to find a place to put this person, and they don't want to make a bunch of calls. I know I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit here.
Well, who's going to take them if they haven't paid their bill, or who is obligated to take them if they haven't paid their bill?
So you know, that goes down to why haven't they paid? Is it as simple as somebody just needs to file the Medicaid application? So somebody will take them if they have a lot of empty beds and they're looking to fill the beds, and they're confident that they can get the Medicaid approved. Someone will take them. I mean, there's usually some, you know, we went through what is SSI, what are veterans benefits, what is RSS. There's a number of programs out there for how this can get paid for. And so, you know, the social worker on the receiving end might be willing to do that work and take them in. Yes, I see that Pro Seniors is spelled wrong. So, yeah, there's ways to get someone transferred safely to another facility. Okay, all right. So I sort of wanted to outline that whole discharge process. If someone is telling you they're trying to kick me out, so that's what you're going to hear. They're trying to kick me out. So the questions we ask are, now have you been given a written discharge notice? Because that right there tells you a lot. You know, are they just saying they don't like me, they're trying to kick me out? Or are they literally trying to discharge someone they have to be given a written notice? Okay. So, you know, you'll figure out how real that is or isn't, you know, based on some questions like that. You know, have you been given a written discharge notice? Did they tell you where you're going to go? You know, you can't just kick somebody out on the street. Do you want to go? Are you trying to go somewhere else? So there's questions we need to ask and dig into. And then probably you're going to get with your staff ombudsman and open a case, as we said. Okay. Okay, so, oh, how did I get back here? Okay, there we go. All right, these are the legitimate reasons for discharge. And when we read through the rights on Monday, we talked about, or we read these, the facility ceases to operate. Okay, that's a pretty good reason to be transferred to another home. Somebody's shutting their doors. Okay. So why do we work to advocate to prevent discharge? Again, some residents really want to stay. They will say, you know, I have friends here. And in some cases, that's their only family. They don't have family. It's the relationships that they've made at that facility, at that home, that so they want to stay. So that's one reason we're going to advocate for them to stay. Discharging the resident does not resolve the underlying problem. Okay, we're trying to discharge you to another nursing home. Well, what is it that that nursing home can do that you can't, is the question. You know, because sometimes they're just trying to get rid of maybe a difficult personality. Okay, well, that's not a good reason. What is it that that another place can do that you cannot for this individual? Otherwise, they're just kicking the can down the road. You know, just kicking the problem down the road. Transfers, discharges can be traumatic. You know, it's that change that, especially someone with dementia, makes it's very difficult for some people. So if they want to stay, that's why we're going to advocate on their behalf to stay. Again, what is this provider? What can't they do that this resident needs? And then the resident has a right to appeal the discharge, and we will help them do that. Okay. All right. We need to talk about the grievance committee. So we read in the rights, I think it's right number 30. I think for whatever reason, it's stuck in my head that it's number 30, that every nursing home needs to have a grievance committee, and every resident has a right to file a formal grievance. That's a piece of paper, and file that grievance. And the grievance committee should have residents as well as staff and sponsors. And actually, let me read this here. The grievance committee shall be comprised of the home staff, residents, sponsors, or outside representatives in a ratio of not more than one staff member to every 2 residents, sponsors, or outside representatives. Okay. You don't have to memorize that, but any grievance, any written grievance should go in front of this committee. So, and the administrator is responsible for making sure there is a grievance committee. That's one of their responsibilities. So somebody has lost laundry, I may ask them, have you filed a grievance? You know, so then that comes down to, what does the policy say? If laundry is lost, are they going to replace it? Are they going to, you know, what does the policy say about that? And are they going to, you know, go out and buy some clothes? Are they going to give the residents some cash for it? Or how are they going to handle it? So anything can go on the grievance form, any complaint. And the administrator is obligated to respond to every complaint that's filed. And there should be records of all this. This grievance was filed, it went in front of the committee, here's how it was resolved. Okay. All right. Resident council. Every nursing home is required to have a resident council, and they usually meet monthly. And as the name implies, this is where residents go and talk about concerns. And it can be strictly a group of residents. If they want a staff person there, they need to invite the staff person to attend the resident council meeting. And the better ones are run, you know, best practices. Somebody should be taking notes. Somebody should, you know, be following up etc. As ombudsman, we are allowed to attend the resident council meetings with an invitation from the resident, which is easy enough to do. There's a resident council president, which is someone you want to get to know anyhow, because the resident council president knows everybody in the building and is usually pretty well informed, and you want to know that person anyhow. Now you're at the resident council meeting to listen. You're there to advise what the rights are for every resident. If something comes up and there's a question, or if somebody has the right to do something, you're going to know the rights. And yes, you have the right to vote, or you know your 33 resident rights. So you're there to advise. You're not there to run the meeting. The meeting should be run by the residents. Okay, but you can be there. It's good to be at a resident council meeting because you hear what's going on. Sometimes you hear the same problem coming up month after month, and you can bring that to the attention of the administrator or someone. This is the third month I've sat in on a resident council meeting, and we're still talking about food being delivered cold. What's being done about that? So, and actually, you have a requirement as part of your training to attend a resident council meeting. Okay, so now don't worry, I'm going to help you set all that up, etc. But you're going to attend a resident council meeting. Okay, so you see how it goes on, and then when we say our volunteers give us 2 to 4 hours a month, what that usually means is one advocacy visit, going in, talking to 5 residents, and 1 resident council meeting. Now, some of you work during the day, you may not have flexibility to get there. Okay, I get it, I understand. But we can always ask for resident council minutes. That's a document we can ask for, and we can check to see if how some things are being addressed. And so the better facilities, they're happy to have resident council meetings, and it is a place for folks to discuss concerns and maybe even brainstorm some solutions. Again, it should not be a contentious thing. Maybe it's a place where people want to talk about activities and what they'd like to be doing. And the activities director should welcome that kind of input from the residents. So it is meant to be a line of communication between the residents and the staff, the administrator in particular, and it should occur monthly. Assisted living is not required to have a monthly resident council, but most do. Yeah, okay. And family council. So, as the name implies, families can get together and meet. And same thing, discuss concerns, brainstorm some solutions, talk about common issues. Food is always a good place to be discussed in resident council or family council. So it's a self-led, self-determining group. You can attend a family council also. You need to be invited by a resident or a family member. And family councils can act on concerns, or, again, you are not there to lead this, but you can let families know what the resident rights are. You can educate them. You can educate on best practices. Hey, who's taking notes? Somebody needs to take notes. You don't want to get sucked into taking notes, but you're there to educate on best practices, and provide maybe some encouragement. Family councils, maybe they meet once a quarter, or it could be monthly. The facility needs to provide the space, the time, let people know Next family council meeting is Wednesday, the 25th at 7 p.m. We're trying to get family councils maybe, you know, can the facility provide Zoom capabilities or a way for families to join remotely? Because, you know, many do work or have children or whatever. So, you know, best practice is that there's also a remote way for family to join. And again, this is about opening lines of communication. The better facilities welcome this family council. You know, they want to hear from families. They should want to hear from families. It helps build a trust and a relationship. And so, yeah, these are all positive things. All right, so let's see. So residents have a right to organize and participate in the resident groups, including resident council, family council. Yeah, I talked about a lot of this already. Okay. The facility must consider the views and act promptly upon grievances and recommendations of resident and family groups as it relates to the resident care and life in the facility. Okay. All right. So this is actually, so there's federal law, there's state law. And I think we covered that early on in training. So there are some specific Ohio laws governing resident family councils. So, all right. I might as well just read this, so bear with me. Okay. Federal regulations, which is on the last slide, do not apply to Ohio's RCFs, which is the assisted living, or those nursing homes that are not certified. That means they do not accept Medicare and Medicaid. And there's only a couple of those. So this is applicable to, okay, wait a minute, I said I was going to read it. Non-certified nursing homes and residential care facilities that have residents or family councils, or for residents of those facilities and their family members who wish to organize them. So the Ohio Resident Bill of Rights provides rights and protections for residents of all Ohio nursing homes and residential care facilities. Okay. As such, all residents of Ohio's nursing homes and residential care facilities have the right to participate in resident and family councils and their loved ones in family councils. Okay? All right, I hope that I didn't confuse anybody. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and I'm just going to read the slide. Residents have the right to voice grievances, recommend changes in policies and services to the home staff, employees of the Department of Health, or other persons not associated with the operation of the home of the resident's choice, free from restraint, interference, coercion, discrimination, or reprisal. This right includes access to a resident rights advocate and the right to be a member of, to be active in, and associated with persons who are active in organizations of relatives and friends and nursing home residents and other organizations, again, that were engaged in assisting residents. Okay, easy for me to say. All right, we've talked about this. Okay, so the goal of family and resident councils is to improve quality of life. Okay, all right. I am going to send this link to you. Yeah, I'm going to send this link to you as homework. This is about 20 minutes. You only have to watch about 10 minutes of it. This is a resident council meeting, and it was recorded in Pennsylvania. And it just gives you a flavor for what is a resident council meeting, what should it look like, what goes on. And this is, of course, one of the better run ones. They're gonna, you know, we have, there's a home in our area, it's Marjorie P. Lee. And, you know, they follow, what is it, Robert's Rules of Meeting, Robert Rules of Meetings, you know, they call the meeting to order, somebody bangs the gavel, they read the minutes from the last meeting, all those in favor, aye, old business, new business, they really run a tight ship. And that is best practice. Run it like a meeting, run it. There needs to be minutes. There needs to be votes and agreement and who wants to second it. And maybe that's a little formal, but it gets the job done. Other facilities, oftentimes you will see, this is not best practice, but you will see the activities director is the one running the meeting. It really should be a resident running it, but sometimes you'll see the activities director running it. Okay. And is he or she also taking notes? You know, it gets a little slippery, right? I mean, and then do they read the notes from the last meeting? No. So, you know, it's a continuum of how people do this, but yeah. Okay, I will be sending that link. All right, we got to keep going. So let me give us about a 2-minute break while I bring up the next module we need to move on to. So I will also pause, and does anybody have any questions, or am I going too fast?
I have a question. I tuned in late and I will catch up, Linda. But
Yeah.
did you say that resident council is only required for or for nursing home, not assisted living?
You know what? I did say that, and then I'm reading this slide. Really think I'm right, but the slide confused me even.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a note. I am pretty sure that it's a nursing home, but not an RFC requirement, but I'm making a note to check that.
Linda, I was wondering whether, forgive me, I was wondering whether there was a required turnaround for the grievance committee. I suspect they meet in response to grievances as opposed to regularly scheduled, and then must they respond within, say, 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think the way it's written is that there needs to be a timely response or a prompt response. I'm not sure it assigns an actual time frame, but I'm going to write that down also. And the grievance form, it should be a written response also. The grievance form should be have, you know, at the top section, you know, what's the grievance, and at the bottom section, a written resolution. But is there a specific time frame? You all are good question askers. You're stumping the trainer. Okay. Good deal. Okay. I really feel like we are on track. We have 10 modules to do, but I do know that modules really 4, 5, and 6 are kind of short. So it may feel like we've only been through 3 modules, but number 3 was quite a long one. Number 7 is going to be quite a long one. But in between, we're going to catch up. And we're going to be right on track, I hope. I mentioned to you guys, you're kind of the guinea pigs. You're the first ones to go through this particular training. So. Okay. So we'll get started on 4. I don't know that we'll finish, but that's okay. We want to get started on this module, which is Ombudsman Access. So we're going to have an introduction to advocacy visits, which I'll share. Your colleague Kay, the reason she joined us late is because she went on her first advocacy visit today. It just happened to align with one of our staff members at a particular facility. And so, but all of you will be going on advocacy visits with me or with a staff person. And then we're going to reverse roles, and we're going to go out again, and I'm going to shadow you, and you're going to do the advocacy, and I'm just going to listen. So we're going to talk about specifically what an advocacy visit is, and the big topic of consent. We're going to go into that some more. Yes, because what do we need? We need consent. All right. We're going to talk about some protocols. We're going to talk about accessing facilities. And with COVID, things have changed a little bit. So we're going to talk specifically about when we visit, and if there's COVID inside the building, we don't want you going in. So before COVID, we can visit anytime, anywhere, but now we're going to check for COVID. So, okay. We talked on day 1, I think, about, a role of this program is to have a regular presence. And I think that's on the exam. And regular presence, our volunteers are critical in helping us achieve that. We need you going into the nursing home or wherever we assign you, assisted living, nursing home, once a month to give us that regular presence. The advocacy visit, you're our eyes and ears. You're going to help increase our awareness of what's happening in the field. And you may be there to address a specific matter if your staff person asks you to do that. So, we do have, okay, yeah. Okay, everything I'm talking about is an in-person visit, okay? Now, we do have some volunteers there who are not comfortable at this point in time because of COVID doing an in-person visit. So they are doing virtual visits. And I'm going to play about 4 or 5 minutes of this particular video, I think, 4 minutes. This is somebody doing a virtual visit over FaceTime. So if for whatever reason you're not comfortable because of COVID going in person, you do have the option of doing a FaceTime visit. So let me play this for a little bit, just to give you a feel for what a virtual visit looks like.
Hello, my name is Jimmy.
Hi. I'm Eileen.
I have the pleasure to meet you. So I'm a long-term care ombudsman, and I represent you and all the residents that live in that long-term care facility where you're at. And
okay.
my job is to contact you. Unfortunately, it's by this means. Normally, I would come in and talk to you, but right now I talk to you like this via this Skype or via this teleconferencing thing, so that we can talk to each other and I can get a feel for how you're doing. So I'll ask, how are you doing today, Eileen?
I'm doing just fine.
Good. And now, how long have you lived there? Do you know?
Oh, gosh, I guess since around the first of the year.
Okay. And how are the staff there treating you? Are they treating you okay?
Yep, very well.
Have you noticed any differences in the way that they're treating you? Are they wearing gloves or masks?
You know, I really haven't paid attention. They probably are, but
Okay.
I'm pretty healthy. I stay mostly in my room, so I don't have much contact with anybody.
Right.
I was just going to say, I make my own bed. I take my own baths and showers and do
Good
my
for
own
you.
hair, that sort of thing.
Right. Are you able to eat in the regular eating area in the dining room, or are you eating in your rooms now?
I eat in the dining area most of the time, but I can eat in my room if I want to.
All right. Are you eating with others, or are you eating by yourself?
Or by myself when I'm in my room, of course, and when I eat out in the dining area, we're spaced apart.
Okay. So a good safe distance.
Right. Yes.
Right. Have you noticed any difference in what they're doing for activities? Are they providing you with anything else to do activities wise?
Well, I have an activities thing here that I'm supposed to do, but I'm a bookworm, so as long as they keep me occupied with books, I'm happy.
Right. So what kind of books are you interested in reading?
Well, right now I'm reading, what is it called? An Alan Alda book.
Okay.
Never have your, yeah. I like to read a lot.
Beautiful. I like to read as well. I noticed that your room is decorated. Are those your own decorations? Did you put them in there?
Pictures and things, yes.
Yes. So you've made that house, you've made that your home, correct?
Yeah. The furniture is mine.
Good.
And the pictures are mine. And everything in the room itself is mine.
Beautiful, including yourself. Now,
including me, right?
So, Eileen, you've lived there since the beginning of the year. You've noticed some changes that they're doing. As an ombudsman, it's also my job to make sure that the facility is doing everything it can do to make sure you're safe. So you've already talked about distancing while you're eating. You've talked about activities and things like that you can do in your rooms. Have you had any visitors there come to your window and talk to you through the window?
Yes, I have a daughter who does that.
That's awesome.
And also a son.
And how do they set that up with you? What does that process look like to you?
Well, can you see the window here?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, okay, they just come and stand right outside that window.
They just come and knock on the window, or do they call you ahead of time?
Oh, I guess they call. I think
Okay.
she just comes, they just
Right.
knock on the window, because I'm always, this is my chair from home, and I sit in this chair and read a lot.
Good. So your family's able to see you through the window. That's a good thing.
Yes.
How are you doing with other things? Are you?
Okay. So that's just to give you an idea of what a virtual visit might look like. That was done early on in the pandemic. You might be able to tell by some of the questions. And, I stressed the other day, we want to ask open-ended questions. All of those weren't open-ended. But this person, the resident, she was that's assisted living. You heard her say she's fairly independent. She can shower herself, etc. Some people, they don't have FaceTime skills, right? So you'll be on FaceTime, but you'll get a picture of somebody's ear because that's what they know to do. But like everybody else, we've had to adjust. So virtual visits is an avenue we've had to take when facilities have been shut down because COVID's in the building. Yeah. Oh, this would be a good time to mention. We do not follow visitors' policies. We're not visitors. We are governmental representatives. So somebody may say, we have COVID in the building, but your staff ombudsman, you know, we're just asking you as volunteers, we don't want you to go in if there's COVID in the building, but as staff ombudsman, you know, they may be shutting down the building to family and visitors, but as an ombudsman, we will still go in, especially if we have a case or something serious is going on. We're going to go into the building, and we have lots of N95 masks and things like that. So anyway, okay, before you go on a visit, there are some things you can do. You're going to call your staff ombudsman and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to make a visit this Saturday. Is there anything going on? You want to touch base with your staff ombudsman. They may say, oh yes, I just opened a case there the other day. Will you go check and see, you know, ABCD? No, I don't have anything new. Just let me know how things are going there. So you're going to touch base. It can be email, it can be a phone call, whatever suits you. But you're going to check base. And if you can't reach your staff ombudsman, you can call me, because this point right here, this AGI, I can look in the system and I can say, well, the last time they had a visit before you was, or the last case that was opened up had to do with the temperature. So maybe on your visit, you know, check to see how the room feels to you. We prepare before we go on a visit. I think I'm going to have to send you this link. I don't see it here in this slide. We can check to see if the Ohio Department of Health has been in recently. That's what this link, this consumer guide link, will tell you. We can look for the latest ODH service survey report. So there's some, and the reason we do that is because it might guide our advocacy. It might help us say, oh, well, I want to check on the law, you know, I want to check on linens. It looks like we had a recent complaint where they were running out of towels and people weren't getting their showers. So I'm going to ask residents about their showers and have they been getting showers and things like that. So, prior to making a visit, you're going to have a conversation with your staff ombudsman and maybe just see if there's anything in particular you want to ask about, you want to check up on. You are going to wear masks. Before you go, there is a couple videos you need to watch, like how to properly put on an N95 mask. So there's some things like that. So we prepare for our visits. Then when you arrive, we always sign in. You need to sign the visitor log. Some of them are electronic. They're like little iPads and you sign in. And when you sign in, they always want to know, who are you there to see? You are there to see all residents. Even if your staff ombudsman has asked you to check up on somebody in particular, you're not going to reveal that, because then you would be revealing someone's identity. So you're going to sign in, you know, your name, you're the ombudsman, and you're here to see all residents. You will be issued a badge when you successfully complete your training. We always want to try to check in, you know, are there any new residents that we need to see? It's important to touch base with people who have recently moved in for several reasons. One, they probably don't know what an ombudsman is or what an ombudsman can do for them. So we'll educate a little bit there. We also want to know how things have gone in the early days. You know, have there been a lot of people in here asking you questions? That's the assessment. Do you know have you been given a care plan? Depending on how long they've been there. If they've been there 2 days, they don't have a care plan yet. We can ask to see resident council meeting minutes, but if you were at the last resident council meeting, you know what's been going on. So that's what we do upon arrival. And then while we're there, you're gonna take notes. Okay, all right. Some people don't. I have to take notes. I mean, or I'll forget. So I carry a little pad with me, and I take in, and this is bullet points, because when you submit your report, which we'll get to, you're giving us bullet points. Okay, so we're not looking for a book or formal prose or paragraphs, but we are looking for bullet points. So when we do our first visit together, I'm going to do the report and I'm going to send it to you so you can see how I would document what we did that day. But we're going to put down the hallways and common areas were relatively clean, or they weren't, or they were dirty. Hallways were there was food on the floor. The outside of the building was maintained. There were Halloween decorations up. So your observations, again, you're our eyes and ears. So your observations are key. Some observations may be about the sense of smell, right? Like, I smelled urine in the hallways. We observed ants walking across the floor. So we're going to record our observations, good and bad. We might observe how is the staff interacting with the residents. Is it I can't get to you right now, I'm busy. Okay, that's not a good interaction. If you're there at a mealtime, how's the food look to you? Would you eat it? But we're there to meet with the residents, and so we're there to talk to a good visit. We say is you talk to 5 people. Okay, so depending on the building layout, I want to talk to people in different hallways. I want to talk to male and female. I'm trying to mix it up and get a good representation of 5 people who live there. And I'm going to ask them the open-ended questions that we've talked about somewhat. How are you? You're going to have to explain you'll get your elevator speech down. I'm Linda, I'm an ombudsman, and what that means is I come around and I visit with residents just like you, and I'm here to find out how things are for you today. So can you tell me, how does the staff treat you? Have you been to a resident council meeting? What do you like to do for activities? We're going to ask these open-ended questions about any aspect of life. We can ask about anything. Do you get to see family? I often ask residents how long they've lived there. I think you saw Jimmy did that in the video too. It kind of tells me a little something about their capacity, if they can tell me, or they just don't know. It also tells me if they know a little bit about who to contact and how the place runs, or do I need to educate them on it? So those are the questions we're going to ask. And as the bullet point says we are there to build rapport. A resident may not tell you much of anything the first time you meet them, but they'll get to know you. They'll see you a second time, a third time, and they might start opening up and start telling you things. And we do want to be a good listener. Now, some folks can talk your ear off, that's for sure. Sometimes you do have to know how to get out of a conversation. Not to be rude, but you need to move on and talk to some other folks. And sometimes I say that. Sometimes I say, well, listen, Barbara, it was great to meet you. I'm going to go talk across the hall to your neighbor across the hall, but I'll be back, next month. So I'll check back with you and see if you got your dentist appointment set up. Sometimes you do have to cut things off, unless you have all night to spend. All right, then you're going to fill out a report, which I'm going to bring up, not today, but I think next time. When we write the report, we're trying to capture the consumer's voice. So we actually do want to write down what the consumer tells us. If they say the food stinks, I'm going to put that in my report. I'm not going to interpret and say, well, resident thought the food was cold. I don't know what stinks means. I'm going to ask, what do you mean by stinks? Well, they serve chicken 4 times a week, and I don't even like chicken. Okay, so now the problem is variety, not the problem is not the food is cold. Okay, so, or I may put down, oh, Lisa on 3rd shift, she is an angel. I may put in my notes, Lisa is an angel. So we're capturing the voice of the consumer helps us when at a local level and at a state level, we're compiling all these comments and we're looking for trends, and we really do want to represent what the resident is telling us. Okay, harm, probable harm, is a serious matter. Let me see if we're getting into this. No, that must be next week. All right, but I think I've already said this. If someone begins to talk about abuse, neglect, and exploitation, financial exploitation, those are serious matters. We have some training on that in a future module, but anything that sort of smacks of that, you're going to contact your staff ombudsman right away. You can't reach the staff ombudsman, you're going to try to reach me. If you can't reach me, you're going to go to our helpline. Anything with probable harm, you're going to bring to our attention right away. You're not going to just stick it in the report and hope that somebody sees it. Okay.
Linda, do you ask for consent from the resident in a case like that, or do you explain to them that you're required to do that?
Yeah, so we'll get into this next week, but you want to find out, have they taken any action? Have they told anybody? Now, have you told anybody about this? And yes, we do want to get consent. But if you don't get consent, you still want to make your staff person aware. And you want to talk about it. Hey, he just would not give me consent. What can I do? And then talk about next steps with your staff person. Next steps may be, well, listen, let's talk to 3 or 4 other people, see if we can confirm it with somebody else. Let's wait 2 weeks and go back again and see if we get the same story, and see if maybe this time, maybe he or she will get consent. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. How are we doing? This actually may be a good place to stop. It is 5 till. So we will start with Module 4, Section 2 next time, which is Friday. So Friday, 3 o'clock. We will start back up. There is a homework assignment following Section 4 here. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and send you a couple things. I mentioned that resident right video. I'm going to send you that. I'm going to send you the consumer guide link. I better write this down. See what I mean about writing things down? And then I'll send you the homework assignment just so you can get a feel for what it is. Yeah. Okay. Okay. In our last 4 minutes, Kay, you want to share with us how your visit went today?
Yeah, it was very informative. I mean, I was shadowing a volunteer and a staff person. So I think this other volunteer and I are going to be assigned to the same facility, which is a pretty large facility in College Hill. But we did 5 people in the assisted living and 5 in nursing home. And one of the things we all said is we need to develop a time frame of when you go, because a lot of the nursing home people, it was after lunch about 2 o'clock and they were all napping. And so, I mean, you know, it's like the staff person said, you'll get to know your facility and when's the best time to go. But it was very helpful. And, you know, just, I felt very well received by all the residents we visited. When they found out, you know, we're here to be your advocate, or we're here, you know, to address any concerns, they were very welcoming to talk to us. So that kind of felt good, because I wasn't sure what kind of reception we'd get. So
I think that's a typical reception. Once they understand who you are, yeah.
And most people said, come back again. I love to have visitors. So
yes. And when you go back again, some of them may open up about some issues.
Well, that's what the staff person said, that the more you would get to know somebody, you know, they may not have said anything at first, but after they get to know you, they may open up if there are problems.
We're not, you know, we're not there to try to create a problem if there's not a problem. Questions we don't ask. Now, you don't like this, do you? You don't like the food, do you? Okay, we're not trying to create a problem if it doesn't exist. That age, she's not very nice, is she? Okay, well, that's not what we're there for. So yeah, if you will have visits, I mean, it varies home to home, but you will have visits where everybody will tell you it's great. You'll talk to 5 people and they're satisfied, and that's okay. That's fine. We're not trying to create a problem if one does not exist. You know, we can still educate them on their rights, and we'll still let them know we're here to help. And if they tell us everything's great, you know, thank you, wonderful. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, good.
Linda, quick question. Would it ever make any sense to, I'm kind of thinking this through, so maybe this is a really dumb idea, but to work with the activities director to set up an actual activity where the new ombudsperson would be introduced, and then you could simply introduce yourself, your role, maybe what you did professionally, talk a little bit about patient rights, and then make it 15 minutes. Resident rights, exactly, resident rights. So would that make any sense? Is that ever done? Is that advisable?
Couple things. Some volunteers have started off with these. You hear things crumbling in my office. We do have cards that you can send, and you introduce yourself. And you say, I'm Mike, I'm your volunteer, I'm going to be stopping by on a regular basis. So some people like to do that so that it's like not a cold call, let's say. You're welcome to do that. Or you could start off going to a resident council meeting and introducing yourself there and explaining what you do. Not everybody attends resident council, but even if the activities director sets something up, not everybody's going to attend. Some people stay in their rooms. Some people will be out at a doctor's appointment. You know, I mean, you'll never get 100%, but that's two ways that you could begin your relationship is with an introduction like that, if that's how you want to do it. Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Anything else? Anybody else got anything on your mind?
Linda, just to make sure I understood, we're doing the video for homework, and you're going to send a couple other things by email.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just look for your email.
Yes. At the same time, I send out the replay link. And so those replay links, they take time to process. That's why I can't send them out at 5:01. They take like 45 minutes to process. So I try to send them out later this evening if I can. So yeah, look for that. So when I do send replay links, sometimes I attach the homework too. So look for those. Okay. Everybody good? All right. All right. I'll see you all on Friday.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.